Welcome back, students. So in this video, as promised, we will be studying derived distributions for functions of multiple random variables. So our problem is x and y are the random variables that are given to you, and they may be discrete or continuous, doesn't matter. What we want to study is if there is another random variable z, which is g of x comma y, then how to find the PDF or CDF of this particular random variable, if they are continuous, if they are discrete, how to find PMF, and again the CDF will be same. So that is a problem. So let us start with the first example, which is x and y are independent random variables. They are identically distributed in the sense both of them are uniform 0 1, and I have been given a random variable z which is equal to y by x. Okay, and the question that is asked is find the cumulative distribution function of this z and the PDF of this z. So let us approach this problem. So as they are uniform random variables on 0 1, naturally this is a uniform distribution on a square of unit length, on a unit square. So you can treat this as hitting the dart experiment, and we are interested in this particular experiment. So let this be x, let this be y, and we are interested in the ratio of two random variables, correct? So let us begin our quest by using the two-step procedure. That is, let us try to get this f z of z. What will it be? This is equal to probability of capital Z less than or equal to small z. This is again going to be equal to, remember we always tried to replace this z with the known random variables fx, y, right? So then I will replace it by y by x less than or equal to z. Okay, so we need to do some homework prior to that. Right now I know they are uniform random variables, but I have not listed their joint probability density function. So let me write that. Because it is uniform, it is simply 1 for all 0 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1, 0 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 1, and 0 otherwise. So it's this simple. Then let us try to use this joint CDF and get this particular distribution. So in order to do that, what I need to do essentially is, this is in fact going to be equal to probability of y less than or equal to z times x. Now you see you are in a trap. For example, both sides there are random variables. So one way to handle this is you can use conditioning, and using conditioning you can actually try to solve the problem, in the sense that you can actually condition this over probability of y less than or equal to zx given that x is equal to x, into probability of x is equal to x, which is 0, but we are dealing with this continuous distribution, so you cannot do this. So that probability of x is equal to x is 0, so you cannot really do this, but you can use the other interpretation. But let us not get involved in this interpretation. Instead, let us try to see the problem in a graphical manner. So if you are looking at this region, y is less than or equal to zx, then what region you are looking at? Actually, it is simply if you look at this line, then z is the y is equal to zx. You can look at this line, y is equal to zx, and this is nothing but z is nothing but a slope of a line, and you can actually consider a line in this manner, which is passing like this. Okay, so this is the line y is equal to zx, let us say. Now if this is the line, then what you can do is, if I want to compute the area of this y is less than or equal to zx, that means my y is always less than or equal to z times x. That means I am talking about this area, isn't it? So this area I can actually compute as, because I have been given a uniform random variable, the base is a unit length, so this is half times the unit length. And what will be the coordinate of this line? Because my x is equal to 1, y should be equal to z. Okay, but now the line y less than or equal to zx will also have some formulation in this form, that is, it can actually pass through this also, and this line is also y is equal to zx, and in that case my notion of area is not working out, because I am not having a triangle. You can see this figure, right? So how long this notion works out? This notion works out till I reach this point. That means this notion actually works out when 0 is less than or equal to z is less than or equal to 1. Okay, so then when z is greater than 1, what can I do? Then for z greater than 1, what I can actually consider the area of the triangle which is covered by this, and you know this random variable is uniform and this is the area on which the random variable is spread. So density, the integral of the density over this particular thing will be 1. So in this particular case, now I can tell that if I compute this area and subtract this area from 1, then I will get my answer of this area, which is marked in red. So therefore I can write this again as, again here half the base, you can take the vertical base, so it is 1. And what is the coordinate of this point? At this point y is equal to 1, so x is equal to 1 by z. So I can write this as 1 by z. Wonderful. So for z greater than 1, this is the case. For z less than 1, this is the case. That's all. So I have the answer. Very good. So my fzz is equal to z by 2 when 0 less than or equal to z less than or equal to 1, and 1 by 2z for z greater than 1, and 0 for z less than or equal to 0, right? So this is the complete description of the sample space, a complete description of the CDF. Now remember, this z is y by x, where x can go very close to 0, therefore the random variable is going to be unbounded random variable. Good. So I have figured out what is fzz. Now the next task is very simple, which is step 2 of our standard operating procedure, is to compute the PDF of fzz. So let us compute that. This is going to be equal to ddz of fzz, that is equal to, now I have to do a splitting. One is z by 2 and another one is 1 by 2z. So you can actually compute this using the standard formula. For 0 less than or equal to z less than or equal to 1, z by 2 differentiated will give me 1 by 2, and 1 by 2z differentiated will give me z raised to minus 1, so 1 by 2 z square for z greater than 1. So this is what my PDF will be. fzz for z greater than 1 and 0 otherwise. Okay, just check once again that 1 by 2 1 by z raised to minus 1, differentiation of that will give me minus 1 by 2 z square. So am I missing something? One by 2 z square. Let us verify by integrating this over the range, so that I will be double sure that I am not doing any mistake. So if I integrate this from 0 to infinity fzz dz, that is equal to integral from 0 to 1 1 by 2 dz plus integral from 1 to infinity 1 by 2 z square dz. That will give me this to be equal to z by 2, so this will give me half, plus integral 1 to infinity, half is thrown out. Now this integral is minus 1 by z square, so z raised to minus 2 plus 1 upon minus 2 plus 1. So that will give me, that should give me from 1 to infinity, so that should give me, this is half as it is, z 1 by z, that will be 0 if you put infinity, minus minus, yeah, so that will give me another half. So therefore it is equal to 1, and hence the answer is verified. So my answer is correct. So half and 1 by 2 z square for z greater than 1. This is the density of our new random variable which is given to us. Okay, so the verification is complete and we are done. So this is about the random variable y by x. Another interesting feature that you can ask about this random variable is this random variable does this random variable have finite expectation, because I am seeing the terms of the form 1 by z square. So that's a natural question to ask, what will be the expected value of z? Now I know the density, so I can actually compute the expected value of z. Otherwise you can go ahead and compute using that formula, lotus. So this is integral over 0 to 1 z into 1 by 2 dz plus integral from 1 to infinity z upon 2z square dz. So in this case this is z by 2, so it will be finite, so z by 2 will give you z square by 2 and it will be some finite number. But if you look at this integral, this is of the form 1 by z, and you will get, if you integrate this, so 1 by 2 will come out and 1 by z will remain. If you try to integrate this, you will get 1 by z as ln of z, and evaluated from 1 to infinity, where ln of infinity is infinity, so the integral is actually infinity, right? This means this particular random variable do not have finite mean. Is there anything wrong with this? No, there is nothing wrong with this. There are several random variables which have infinite mean. This is a typical prototype of those random variables. Okay, so that's all for this example, and this is an interesting example because it started with everything bounded, then we have taken the ratio, and because of the ratio the random variable became unbounded, and therefore it became unbounded in such a way that its mean is not finite, expected value is not finite. So this is an interesting demonstration of a behavior of a random variable. Okay, let us go further and let us try to explore an interesting concept of convolution. This is called convolution. When I take sum of two random variables which are independent, then the distribution of the sum is called convolution. And let us understand why it is called convolution. For simplicity, we have taken the random variables that are independent and discrete. So the question that is asked is, what is the distribution of PWW? So the answer will be very simple. Because I know the random variables are independent, you have Pxy of xy, which is given by product of the marginals because they are independent. So here I have used their independence. Okay. Now you are asked, so let us start. When we are dealing with discrete random variables, we need not consider CDF. We can work with simple probability mass function. So let us ask PWW is equal to, that is probability of W equal to W is what? So you can replace this W as a standard convention as x plus y equal to W. Now this I want somehow the joint PMF to play some role. So how will the joint PMF play the role? When I take conditioning. So for that, what I will do is I will keep x there. X is equal to W minus y, or let us try this way simply, you keep y here and y is equal to W minus x. That will be better. There is no problem in this because I am just pushing x from left hand side to right hand side. Now I can use conditioning because on the right hand side I don't want random variable to play any role. So in that case, what will happen is I will consider y is equal to W minus x given x is equal to x into probability of x is equal to x. But this x was a random variable, remember? So I cannot simply get away with this expression because this is not equal to this. So what I need, I am actually marginalizing it, right? So I need to sum over all x's, all possible x's. Okay. Now use the fact that these random variables are independent. So this summation now simply becomes sum over x probability of y is equal to W minus x into probability of x is equal to x. But what is this? If you look at this closely, this is nothing but summation over x py of W minus x into px of x. So I got a formula. I need not worry about what is a PMF or what is a what is PMF of x and what is a PMF of y. If I know that they are discrete random variables, then my formula says PW of W is equal to summation over all x's, consider the probability mass function of x and then consider the probability mass function of y with argument W minus x. That's all. So what is actually happening, if you plot the random variables x and y here, then what is happening is whatever is the value of W, you will get a diagonal in this manner, and this corresponds to the value that x plus y is equal to W. And on this diagonal, whatever points are lying, we are actually summing over all those points. You can solve one or two examples and verify for yourself that this is what you are doing. Okay. Now how the story changes if I take a continuous random variable, that is also interesting. So now I have a continuous random variable with densities that are fxx and fyx. Okay. So now there are two ways to handle this situation. One way is you start with a CDF of W fw of small w. And in a short while I will show you the other way. So this is nothing but probability that capital, sorry, not x, w is less than or equal to small w. And again appeal to the same logic that we are applying for discrete random variables. You just write this as x plus y less than or equal to w, correct? Then you simply add or subtract x or y. So in this case, let us take probability of y less than or equal to w minus x. No sign change will happen because x is added and subtracted from both sides, so no sign change will happen. Okay, then you go further and try to justify this x. So in order to justify this x, what you will do is, because x is a continuous random variable, so you will integrate over r probability of y less than or equal to w minus x, given x is equal to x into the PDF of x. Remember, while solving the example, I said I cannot do this because I have to do this integration over r for this x. Okay, now use the fact that x and y are independent, and therefore what will this be? This is integral over r fy of w minus x, because I am replacing this capital X with small x, fx of x dx. Okay, so I got, using CDF, I got the CDF of our x plus y. Now what I want is, I want to actually derive the PDF. So you can use a similar formulation, that is ddy of ddw of fww. So if I want to derive the PDF of w, it is ddw of fw of w. Now in this case, you see the only function of w is this, and this integral is going to be finite because all the terms involved are less than 1 and they are well behaved, they are in fact continuous. So I can easily transform this ddw inside the integral, and therefore I will get this integral over r. Okay, 1 minute, let me erase this integral. And therefore if you look at this, and if you take if you take ddw of this integral over r fy of w minus x fxx dx, then what is a function of w? It is this, right? So I will transfer it inside the integral. I will transfer the differential operator inside the integral. So this r will remain as it is, and ddw of fy of w will be what? It will be small fy of w minus x fxx dx. Wonderful. So what I have actually shown here is that the distribution of w, if you consider, then it is nothing but, the formula that results is nothing but very similar to what we get when you consider the continuous discrete random variables, where PMFs are replaced by PDFs and sums are replaced by integrals. So this is our formula for convolution of two random variables, for two continuous random variables. And if you look at this formula, this is our formula for convolution of two discrete random variables. And if you compare these two, they are it is very easy to see that they are nothing but replacement of PMFs by PDFs and replacement of summations by integrals. So this logic exactly works out. One interesting exercise is if you have two independent normal random variables. Again I have chosen 0 as a mean to simplify the calculations, and if you are asked to compute W, which is x plus y, then you can easily show that because these two random variables are independent, therefore their density will actually be equal to the density of a normal random variable root 2 pi sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square root of that, and then it will be e raised to minus w upon 2 sigma 1 square, this w square upon 2 sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square. Just verify this, you will get this as a density of this normal random variable, and which justifies my claim that sum of two normal random variables is again going to be a normal random variable, and W will follow normal with mean 0, variance sigma 1 square and sigma 2 square. Now if you recollect our calculations on variance for discrete random variables, when I considered random variables of the form x plus y, then when I computed variance of x plus y, I have derived a formula which says if x and y are independent, this is equal to variance of x plus variance of y, and if x and y are not independent, so this is an independent case, and if x and y are not independent, then variance of x plus y is typically dominated by a term which we called as covariance then for discrete random variables, and this will be plus 2 times covariance of x comma y. So let us go deep into this term which is called covariance of x comma y. So the term of covariance is actually equal to, when you talk about covariance of x comma y, you are actually talking about expected value of x minus expected value of x into y minus expected value of y. Okay, so what does this term denote? So here are two representative diagrams. In this case, it actually measures a degree of linear relation between the two factors x and y. So if you look at this diagram, I can easily see that in this diagram the degree of linear relation, if I try to fit a straight line through this particular diagram, then it goes through, and the degree of linear relation, which is the slope of this line, that is going to be positive. Okay, and in this diagram, if you look at this, you are going to get this kind of circle, and if you try to pass a straight line which best fits these points, which you generally do using least squares method, then you will get this kind of line, and the slope of this line will be negative. Now how they are related, that's what we need to figure out. So let us try to see. If you focus on x, if you see in this diagram, as x increases, where are the values of y? So y also increases in this diagram, whereas if you look at this particular line where x decreases, then y actually increases in value. Okay? As you are going from right to left, y is increasing, right to left on x axis, so y is increasing, and right to left motion means a motion of decrease, direction of decrease. So you are having smaller values of x corresponding to larger values of y. Okay. So this is how this particular term has some negative association and this particular term has some positive association, and because it is related to a line, we say a degree of linear relationship. Now let us look at the definition of the random variable. X minus expected value of x and y minus expected value of y. For simplicity, let us assume that this expected value of x is equal to 0 and expected value of y is equal to 0. If you assume this, then you are actually looking at the movement of x into y, the movement of xy together. So in that case, I have a point which is 0 0, expected value of x is 0, expected value of y is 0. So this is the point 0 0, and when I compute this x into y, what happens? The positive value of x is naturally associated with positive value of y. The negative value of x is naturally associated with negative value of y. Therefore, the product xy is always going to be positive. Even if some of them are here like this, still the product is always going to be positive because the positives will dominate in this case. Therefore, your covariance will be positive. In this case, that is the second case that we are considering, they are actually in where the mean is 0, x bar, expected value of x is 0, expected value of y is 0. They are actually associated with negative values. So in both these places, in both these quadrants, if x is positive, y is negative, and if y is positive, x is negative. So in general, you will get more negative values. Therefore, this expected value will have a negative, will be negative. Okay. So this is how covariance can be related to data. This is the description. The simplification of covariance formulation we have already seen, which is expected value of xy minus expected value of x into expected value of y. I have already said this, and therefore you will have a nice formulation if x and y have mean 0. Now let us go to a general case which we have already derived, that x1, x2, xn, but only thing is we derived everything for discrete random variables, but it doesn't matter. Based on our experience, if we want to derive the similar thing for continuous random variables, just replace the PMFs by PDFs and you will get a corresponding answer, which is this. So this is a standard formula for computing variance of sum of random variables. When these random variables are independent, all these xi's will be 0 and you will simply reduce to a sum. Your variance of the sum will simply reduce to sum of variances. Okay, that is what is written here. So independence implies covariance of xy is equal to 0. Covariance of xy equal to 0 need not imply independence. You will see some exercises in your problem sheet related to this particular issue. Okay. Now covariance has a similar problem in terms of unit as the variance was facing. Okay, let us observe one more fact. What is covariance of xx? By definition, if you go by definition of covariance of xx, you will simply see it is expected value of x square minus expected value of x the whole square, which is essentially the variance of x. So that confusion is gone. Now this variance has a problem when we are trying to compare the results in terms of units. So same problem as by this formula will be faced by covariance. So in that case, we want to get rid of this covariance. So how will you get rid of this covariance? So for that, you will define a notion of correlation coefficient, which will actually help you in understanding what is the dimensionless quantity related to correlation. So what was creating problem? It was the variance of x and variance of y. As we have seen for normal distribution, the scaling can work here. Therefore, what we did is x minus expected value of x is scaled by sigma x, and y minus expected value of y is scaled by sigma y. So that case we are eliminating the problem of variance because we are scaling it. So now because we have scaled this, the formula eventually becomes covariance of xy upon sigma x and sigma y. Remember, if you look at the random variable which is normal, and if you consider this transformation sigma x, then what is the variance of this random variable? This random variable will have a variance 1. So in a similar manner, if you consider this random variable by this logic, if you replace this y by x, then you are getting rho square, something of the form of rho square, and that rho square will always be less than or equal to 1. That imbibes the fact that your rho will always fall between -1 to 1. And this can be literally proved using linear relation between x and y, and whenever x and y are linearly related, that is y is equal to say some ax plus b, and if you compute the correlation between y and x, it will be 1. So that is what this particular factor is. X minus expected value of x is constant times y minus expected value of y, then mod rho is equal to 1. That is, they are linearly related. If A is positive, the correlation is positive. If A is negative, the correlation will be negative, and they are perfectly related. The same remark which applies for covariance applies for correlation also. If rho is equal to 0, when will rho be 0? Only when covariance is 0. So if the random variables are independent, correlation is always going to be 0. Converse is not true. You will see this in the problem sheet describing some examples. One more fact that is remaining is our continuous random variables. We can actually derive directly the density of continuous random variables. For that, we simply need one more condition which is not there earlier. So this G should be monotone. Okay. So I have been given a random variable x with density fxx. I am asked to find the density of random variable y, which is given by g of x. My question is fyy is what? Okay. So g is monotone, so it will be either increasing or decreasing. For our purposes, let us take g to be an increasing function, and let us start for deriving the density of y. Initially what we did, we were starting with the CDF of y. So instead now you start with a small interval of length y to y plus delta, where delta is very small. If delta is very small, I can approximate this density with this particular expression fyy times delta. Then you write this density in terms of x. So you write this as y less than or equal to g of x less than or equal to y plus delta, not density. You write this probability as this. So you have written this probability. Now as per our standard operating procedure, when we were considering CDF, we were converting it to a function, that function of x to probability in x. So the same thing you will do. Now your G is monotone, so either it will be increasing or decreasing. That means the G inverse, the reverse of G, is well defined. So you apply that G inverse on both sides. We are considering increasing function, so there won't be any alteration in inequalities. Less than or equal to will remain less than or equal to. If you are considering a decreasing function, then this less than or equal to will become greater than or equal to, or the limits will just get swapped. Okay, so now this doesn't have any issue. We have done this calculation several times. When I computed y is equal to x cube, I have done this kind of calculation. So if you are doubtful, you go and verify that calculation, but this calculation is valid. So I am reached here. Now you rewrite this in terms of CDF. Because we are dealing with continuous random variable, this interval is equivalent to probability of x less than or equal to g inverse of y plus delta minus probability of x less than or equal to g inverse of y. Now we are getting some interesting thing. So now you multiply and divide by g inverse of y plus delta minus g inverse of y. If you do that, you will get something of this form. Okay, now one delta is lying here. I can write this delta as y plus delta minus y. If I can write this delta as this, and this delta is small but greater than 0, so I will pull this delta to the other side and I will get this result. Now left hand side is becoming independent of delta and the right hand side has all the terms with relation to delta. So you take limit as delta tending to 0. So this left hand side will be unperturbed. You consider the first term on the left hand side, which is fx g inverse of y plus delta minus fx g inverse of y, g inverse of y plus delta minus g inverse of y in the denominator. Limit as delta tending to 0 of this term will be nothing but the probability density function of fx evaluated at g inverse of y. And if you look at this term in isolation, what is this term? This is nothing but derivative of g inverse of y, derivative of g inverse of y. Now you use the logic of chain rule to combine these two terms, then you will get, so essentially you will get this fyy is equal to fx g inverse of y into d dy of g inverse of y. Okay, this simply reduces to, yeah, so that's all. This is the chain rule. So you got the result. And now if g is decreasing function, what will change? I have already demonstrated you in this example. So this less than or equal to will change to greater than or equal to, correct? And this CDF will become 1 minus the CDF. That's all will be the difference. And therefore you will have higher term minus the lower term, but they are negative, so the negative sign will survive, and because this is decreasing function, you will have a negative sign of this, and therefore the negative sign will cancel itself off, and hence your formula in general will be of this form. Okay, so let us try to use this formula and solve the example that we have solved earlier. So x is uniform 0 3, y is equal to x cube, and fyy is equal to what? So now it's just plug and play. So for example, now I know what is fx of x, which is equal to fx of x will be 1 by 3 for 0 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3 and 0 otherwise. So sometimes when the y is monotone function, then the job is very simple, as I will demonstrate. So fx of this will be, so what is g inverse of y, that also we need. So g inverse of y is actually y raised to 1 by 3, correct? That is my x. So I will replace this. Fine. So so you need to now just plug and play these things, this thing and this thing. So fx fy of y is fx of g inverse of y, what is it? Y raised to 1 by 3 into d dy d dy of y raised to 1 by 3. It's this simple. So what is fx of y raised to 1 by 3? You simply write this as 1 by 3. And what is d dy of y raised to 1 by 3? It will be 1 by 3 times y raised to 1 by 3 minus 1, so y raised to minus 2 by 3, which will give you 1 by 9 y raised to minus 2 by 3 for, now what is the range of y? That's what you have to figure out. So x was varying from 0 to 1 by 3, so 0 less than or equal to y raised to 1 by 3 less than or equal to 3. That gives me 0 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 3 cube, that is 27. Okay, so my final answer is fyy, which is equal to 1 by 9 y raised to 2 by 3 in the denominator, 0 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 27, and 0 otherwise. Good. So this is what is density approach. Let us go and verify in our earlier result what we have done for continuous random variables, whether this particular answer matches with our answer. Yes, it matches. See this answer. Good. So we have matched the answer, and therefore we have one more approach for whenever the random variables are continuous, you can actually talk in terms of densities. But remember, the condition is the function g should be monotone. So where the function is not monotone, suppose x is taking values which are negative and positive, and you are talking about y is equal to x square, then you can think about how will you find the values, because y is equal to x square as this shape parabola where it is not monotone. So at some place it is decreasing, at some place it is increasing. So one way is you can split the function into two parts and you can find the density, or other way is you can use simply the CDF approach, which doesn't bother about whether the function is increasing or decreasing. Okay, that's all for this part. Thank you.